Caitlin, Grace, Faridi, Sherry, Ashley. Good, Isaiah. It's nice to see you all. Nita, Jaden, Jocelyn, Alexis. I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras on, but that is part of your participation in this session. Yeah, there, Laura Collins just texted as well, or put it in the chat. I don't know if you can all hear me, but please turn your cameras on. Great. Good. It's good to see so many of you. Excellent. All right, just waiting for Jaden, and then I want to introduce Dr. Walker to you. Great. All right, we're so glad you're all here. I'm going to introduce Dr. Walker to you and then turn the time over to him so we can give him lots of time to talk today. So I don't know if any of you had a course from Dr. Walker?
I see two. Hi, Sherry. Right. Hi, Jaden.
All right, there you go. So give him a wave. There you go.
My people.
All right. So, and you can wave. And so he's been teaching. He teaches and will teach more for the Honors College. But what I think I already told you in an email that the reason I invited him was because last spring, when the whole campus shut down abruptly and we left and went immediately and dramatically to virtual learning, he found that his students, like many students, it was challenging for them to make that transition. He took a little detour in his class and talked to his students for a couple of weeks about resiliency and resilience training, and it changed the whole tenor of his class and how they were able to manage once he went back to the course material. And so when he told me about this, I said, I want you to come to the Honors College and do an event and tell us about this too, because surely we are all in very strange times, right? I mean, look at us. We're all, it's the Brady Bunch. We're all 12 heads on a screen, right? So let me introduce him to you, tell you a little bit about his background, and then I'm turning the time over to him. So Dr. Nathan C. Walker teaches at First Amendment and Human Rights Law here at Rutgers Camden. And in the spring of 2021, he's teaching a new seminar for us that I'm really excited about, which is called Happiness, a multidisciplinary exploration of human flourishing. So basically what I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what it means to be happy and what it, and how different disciplines define happiness and certainly I'm sure that has crossed your mind in a pandemic. What's important to me and how do I find joy right now? He's published 5 books, including a book called Cultivating Empathy, which Publishers Weekly listed in November 2016 as one of the top 6 books for a post-election spiritual detox. So it might be another book you want to buy on November 4th, 2020. Right? So I hope not. But it is. But we're in angry times, right? I mean, it's a hostile environment out there, and so I think you're right that we're going to need a spiritual detox again. Cornel West called his edited volume "Whose God Rules" very provocative and pioneering. Nate earned his doctorate from Columbia University, and he served as a resident fellow at Harvard University and presented his research at the United Nations Human Rights Council. He also has a website, natewalker.com, that you could go look at after we're done. So I'm going to turn the time over to him. I think we're really lucky to have him at Rutgers and in the Honors College. And then I would say if you have questions, and you don't want to forget them, put them in the chat, and then in the chat we can go and look at some of the comments and questions that you've had. Otherwise, there'll be time at the end as well for you to ask questions. So Dr. Walker, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Westman. I'm just in awe of your leadership. You're so skillful in these uncertain times, and all of us feel very much held in your care, and all your hard work has not gone unnoticed. So good work. Thank you. I'm going to be sharing in the chat room a PDF version of the images that I'll share, so you can download that for later if helpful to you. But what I'd like to do is just share my screen and take you through 8 different ideas on the concept of resiliency. And I want to begin by explaining a little bit about how I come to this topic. Um, I have 3 learning disabilities. I really have throughout my life struggled with um, schooling and with writing, and although that was very hard and continues to be, I feel like it is my curiosity, it's my inner compass of having this unquenched thirst for connection, information, insight that leads me to learn, even though learning is hard for me. So when I think of the topic of resiliency, I look back on my own life and see the obstacles that I faced. I came out of the closet when I was 15 years old, and grew up in a desert town in Carson City, Nevada. And being suicidal as a teen was a very, very severe internal emotional state. And it was through acts of belonging, it was through acts of feeling connected to some key individuals in my life, like my family, like my religious community, that gave me a sense of purpose and value, helped me feel like I mattered, and in turn was able to transform those very difficult internal experiences from marginalization to a feeling like I matter, to a feeling like I belong. So, having spent a lifetime reflecting on this topic, I come to you acknowledging the extreme vulnerability we are all facing right now: a pandemic, economic uncertainty, racial unrest. We have extreme environmental um, disasters going on. My aunt and uncle just lost their home in one of the California fires, and everything they owned was destroyed. Another family member of mine is a firefighter in Oregon. Um, my dad is going through cancer and is in this tiny little desert town where the president held a rally where people weren't wearing masks. And I feel like my dad was even more vulnerable to a possible super spreader event. What I'm trying to explain by sharing these very personal things is that when we are experiencing uncertainty and um, when we're experiencing collective kind of trauma, it can often be overlapping with different segments of our life. So these 8 things little nuggets that I've shared with you are like kernels. Think of it like shucking a corn and you're trying to get to a kernel of an idea. These kind of 8 kernels that I offer you are a way to connect to that type of experience that we all are having, and I'm hopeful that they might aid in you being as your most resilient self. Let me also say first that I don't believe that knowledge is something that and one person has, and that others have to then take it, and like you're depositing money into a bank and then that person with the knowledge needs to withdraw it back. Like I don't feel like that's how knowledge is created. I think knowledge is created together. We learn together. And so with that, I really encourage you to write down your own insights and not just listen to what I'm saying, but listen to yourself, listen to the wisdom within. And as we get to the end and we go move into the conversation stage, I would love to hear your insights on this topic, because you can be our teacher, my teacher as well. All right. So with that, I want to name, I think, the true challenge of the college experience. And that the challenge is to stop chasing the myth that American higher education has painted for us, that somehow there's this country club college where you're going to go and you're going to have all your needs met, your food and the tennis court and this gym, and you're going to have this, and it's all going to be every social activity, and it's going to be a country club, a social club, some kind of elite experience where everything's going to be safe and everything's going to be good, and you're going to be um, in the in group. That is a myth. And if we follow that mirage, I think we will remain thirsty in the desert for many, many years to come. Rutgers is not a country club. Rutgers is a training ground. We are collectively, you, Dr. Westman, me, we are collectively training to develop our moral integrity, to develop our intellectual self-worth. And so the true curriculum of the college experience is not the country club. It is the training ground where the true curriculum becomes our character. The true curriculum, if achieved in the full sense, will leave you upon graduation day holding your diploma, where you can look into the mirror and feel self-worth and feel proud at your hard-earned accomplishments. It is about a type of self-integrity and self-integration that this college experience requires of all of us. Throughout these really formative years, we will experience stress. But then the question is, and this is the second idea, how do we define stress? Consider this. Stress is the perception of a threat. Let's just stop there. Perceptions can be experienced, but not necessarily verified, right? I might have an perception of a threat that I can't actually get a third person to confirm if that's true or not. Other times I can. Regardless of its verifiability, if I perceive a threat, I experience it as stress. So here's an example. If you're in a jungle and a leopard jumps out at you, and you have that experience of being afraid and being startled by that event, even though you ran away and you were safe, years later, when you're in a different forest in a different part of the world, and you start to think, oh, they don't have leopards here, but they do have lions. And all of a sudden I perceive that there's going to be this threat that's going to come out. So I'm experiencing the stress because my muscle memory is teaching me to prepare myself for the unknown. Stress is a type of self-preservation strategy that we have in our muscle. And so whether or not it's a verified lion or not, if I perceive it to be, I will experience the stress. Now, here's the second part of the definition. Stress is the perception of a threat coupled with the belief that one is not capable of coping. If I go into what will likely be a challenging semester because of social distancing, and I say, okay, this is a verified threat. It's going to be isolating. It's going to be a little bit hard. It's not going to be the experience that I thought it was going to be. I have to manage my expectations. It's stressful. That's verified. But do I believe I am capable of coping with this stress? So, to answer that question, we go back in our memory of our other parts of our lives and say, oh, yeah, I really did get through that really difficult time. I really did survive that trauma. I really did face that ambiguity with maturity. I can do it again. I can are the key words. Do I believe I am capable of coping? And if we focus on those two words each time we are experiencing stress, we shift the balance of power into the true curriculum, which is our character, our self-worth. How do we feel about ourselves in the midst of stress, in the midst of ambiguity? Rather than focusing on all the unknowns and the this and my perceptions of this threat and that threat and this threat, I then focus inwards and say, okay, what can I do now? And how can I rely on my hard-earned skills that will aid me in this moment? Idea number 3. Consider your life as a series of dominoes. Each one represents a segment of your life: health, family, money, school, intimate relationships, friendships, so on. Each different segment of our life like has an independent domino. When things go wrong, we often feel like there's an avalanche of falling, right? When all the dominoes start to fall over. Like, I don't feel well, so therefore my schooling goes off, and I'm start being agitated with my loved ones, and then I start this and this, and there's a domino effect. A strategy for coping with that is to take that one domino that is falling, grab it, and carefully let it fall sideways, not forward, not backward, hitting the other dominoes, but let it fall sideways. It's a kind of compartmentalizing strategy to say, I'm going to rest this down. This is not working right now. It needs my attention and care, but I'm going to be able to maintain the other aspects of my life because I'm a self-differentiated person, because I can cope with this part being down and I know how to bring it back up. And I trust that the other parts of my life will be okay as I give my attention to this sideways falling domino. Doing this prevents that overwhelm, that avalanche where everything is kind of overtaking us. And that sense of overwhelm can be experienced in real time with an acute issue. And another way it can be that sense of overwhelm can come from replaying the dramas that have long passed. It's called rumination. That happened then, and this person said that, and this didn't happen, and that person blah blah blah, and this event never da da da, and now I have to this and da da da. Ooh, the ruminator's mind is similar to a rat trapped on a wheel. running and running and running and running and running, getting nowhere. So I'm I've been jotting down lots of little notes and things as I study the science of happiness and study sort of different disciplinary approaches to happiness. And I have this little notebook called A Ruminator's Guide to Happiness because I've spent most of my life ruminating. And what I have seen in these key moments of my life is that I have to move from getting through that transition period to actually sparking some kind of meaningful transformation, similar to like a cocooned insect who then is seeking to transform into that new stage of life. That I gotta like create that transformation rather than just be in transition all the time. And that transformation is often an internal experience. And so a, a technique that I use to deal with rumination is to visualize a a picture frame going around that rumination scene, whatever it is, whatever thing I keep replaying, whatever that drama was. And then I say, okay, snapshot. I know you. I know that script. I know that whole thing. But I'm going to replace it with thoughts of reminiscing. What about that time that I also found to be really meaningful? Oh, that was so funny when that person did that. Oh, that is so crazy. I can't believe I said that. Can you, all of a sudden, the story moves from I've been victimized to I am making meaning. I'm a storyteller. I'm a meaning maker. I'm remembering. And what do we do when we remember? We put back in order. And I think that remembering process is a kind of transformation that gets us reminiscing about our lives and then experiencing something pretty profound, which is when time ticks, it can be very consistent and measured. And time moves forward, and often not fast enough, and sometimes too slow, depending on where we're at. But that that time, the measurement of time, can be in a kind of encasement for the ruminator. The ruminating mind really fixates on that time. When we reminisce, all of a sudden, time turns into a moment that we cherish, a moment that has some spaciousness to it, a moment that gives us a sense of exhaling. And so, whenever we're entrapped in some moment of time, when we reminisce, we then transform time into moments. And I experienced this in particular when I was showering and I'm literally preparing for the day. This was a couple years ago, and I had a job in DC. And I had a situation where a, a supervisor of mine was mistreating a colleague of mine. And I was really upset by it. And I was getting ready for the day, and I found myself showering, kind of getting into an argument with this person. And I'm just going to make up a name. Like, let's say Nicole is the name. And I would say, Nicole, like, don't mistreat that person. Oh, da 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 da. And I would get into this argument in my head, kind of preparing to go to work. Well, I found myself having that internal monologue as I was showering 3 years after I left the job. Like, what is happening? So I literally yelled out, Nicole, I shower alone. And it was completely transformative because I was like banishing the character in my mind. It wasn't even a human anymore. It wasn't even like my supervisor or mentor. It was like some like monster I created in my head that was like plaguing me every time. And I kind of realized that, oh, my muscle is thinking I'm showering. Oh, so I must be getting ready for work. So I need to arm myself. And so it's a kind of preparing type of thought. So I get like the function of of that preparation, of having that script, that argument in my mind that I'm ready to like spout off any moment. But that was not helpful to me anymore. It was 3 years later and I was trapped in a ruminator's wheel. By saying I shower alone, it's a self-differentiated position to say, thank you, body. I know you're preparing me for a conflict, but not today. That's over. I'm going to reminisce now on all the things that I liked about my mentor, I liked about my work, how we were able to resolve that conflict, how that abusive situation stopped. Like it all was fine in the end. And I'm trying to remind my mind and in turn my body that it's okay. Idea 5. To flourish mentally begins by building a rich internal life. For many of us in the margins of society, we can be very, very vulnerable to negative self talk. I mean, cruel self talk, right? Like the script, the internal life of my teenage self was so tortured and so had experiencing so much suffering that I thought, oh, I must end this. So I equated suicide with the ending of pain. Later, I learned if I had suicidal thoughts, I realized, oh, I know that thought. That's a trigger that my muscle memory is thinking, this is too much. So I need to end this pain. And so here's I think, the most helpful thing about those encasements. And that is to stop thinking that our thoughts are ourselves. My thoughts are experiences, just like muscle twitches are an experience, just as like whether I'm breathing fast or slow is an experience, right? Our thoughts, if we observe them rather than be consumed by them, we may be able to say, aha, I know that script. And then we can put, rather than a frame around it, we can put like a big curtain on it, like in a theater. And we can say, I'm going to watch this drama. I'm not going to play a lead role in it. And all of a sudden, we are not consumed by our thoughts. We are observers of them. If we're able to do that, we are able to transform all different other types of language that can be harmful. The negative self-talk can be very demeaning to ourselves. And then we find ourselves at times using that language on others. And frankly, we are in a time where demeaning acts are often politically rewarded, right? And celebrated. And so you get an even more intensified culture where demeaning becomes the cultural norm, right? The bullying that's going on in cyberspace is like extreme because people feel like there's anonymity, so they can just say whatever they want. Like, don't read the comment sections on like blogs, right? It's like the bowels of humanity where people are just demeaning and demeaning. If we feel ourselves that we're encased by demeaning patterns in our minds, the challenge, right? The true like training that we have to go through requires us to be the meaning makers. Storytellers are meaning makers. Artists are meaning makers. A physician who is helping a patient understand their disease, their diagnosis, is someone who's helping them make meaning of the ambiguity of the suffering. Whether you are a parent, whether you are a friend, when we help ourselves or help others make meaning of our lives, all of a sudden we get this huge experiencing of spaciousness where we can begin to flourish and flourish. That requires that we move our interrogator mind and replace it with the creator mind, right? An interrogator like investigates and this and this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong, and those are good skills to have a lot, especially intellectually when we have to really investigate issues. But we cannot stay there. We cannot only be what we set out against. We have to not only deconstruct, we have to construct, we have to create, we have to make meaning. And this requires a kind of openness, a mental flexibility to recognize certain thoughts for what they are. Take anger, for instance. Anger is a signal that something is wrong. Anger is a signal that something is very, very wrong. But often we act on anger as if it's the solution. This is an example of how you take a difficult emotion, you put a curtain around it, and then you watch that drama, not play a lead role in it, and you seek to make meaning. Oh, anger, I know you. You're actually not really anger, you're shame. You're not really anger, you're like disappointment. These other secondary emotions behind the anger that's driving it. Oh, I don't have to act on you. I can see you as a signal that something's alerting me. Okay, I'm going to make meaning about this. I'm going to create. I'm going to be curious about what's going on. I'm not going to be furious. This is what it means to build that rich internal life. So to have that spaciousness by which we can flourish. Idea number 6. Often college can feel like drudgery, where everyone else is setting my week's agenda. I have this assignment, I have this to do, I have this to do, after this to do. And it can feel like a machine. It can feel like an errand. That is one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is I have this opportunity to focus my mind, to find a sense of flow, to be completely absorbed in a single activity and develop a sense of mastery, a sense of competence about this issue or that issue. I didn't realize that. I didn't even thought I cared about this topic or that topic. But when I'm in the flow and it captures my full attention, my perceptions are sharpened. And I think, I thought I hated math, but like, I just spent an hour and a half on this calculus stuff. And I looked up and I didn't even realize that where the time went because I had made a moment. I was in the flow. If you have the thought that's inviting you to resist the drudgery, resist the errands, resist the monotony of it all, ask yourself, is this a helpful thought? And can I replace it with something more helpful, more constructive, something that can be more meaningful. Like, ah, I have so many other things I'm worried about. I'm just going to be completely absorbed in this right now. I need that escape. And that's my hope for you. I want you to feel like you have a sense of flow and that you're gaining this really this hard-earned mastery over your subject areas, not only with the goal of having knowledge about whatever it is you're studying, but having an attitudinal disposition toward curiosity. If we're able to do this internally, we can turn to that close friend. We can turn to that colleague. We can turn to that family member. We can turn to that stranger and help them feel like they belong. One of the great challenges before us as a campus and as a culture, as a society, is to help us move from feeling marginalized to helping people feel like they matter. That's like 90% of the challenge before us. People are so many are on the margins and feeling vulnerable and feeling isolated. The fact that you all showed up today for this experience, it's an affirmation that you matter, that you belong here. Your hard work, like I just am so impressed with all the hard work you're doing with Laura to engage in this work, to really strategize about how to flourish in these times. And as you do that, you're really asking, to whom do you belong? To what do I belong? Where do I belong? And the answer is, you belong here. We got your back. We're here to support you. We're here to learn from you. And as you get that sense of belonging, you're going to help your roommate feel like she or he belongs as well. And you're going to be able to do that with that person from work who is just feeling so overwhelmed by everything. All it's going to take is for you to hear that other person scream out, "Can I get a witness to the suffering I'm experiencing?" And all you have to say is, "Yes, I hear you. I see you." And then you send that random text. You offer that kind word. You listen a little bit longer. You you go deeper and reconnect. Why? Because you have such a rich internal life, you are able to open yourself to the suffering of others and widen and widen and widen your circle of compassion. And all the stereotypes you had of the other, all the the misperceptions that were planted in your mind about their political affiliation or their race or their culture or religion, they all fall away because you are able to connect on a human level with another person. And you begin to see that we all belong, we all matter. And so I want to close with this last idea, and it's as a kind of call and response. So I know you're all muted, but I encourage you to say the line, "Help somebody," after I share one line. And before we do that, I want to close by saying resiliency is not simply something that happens once. Resiliency is a way of life. Because just like nature that has its storms and it has its fury and the fires and the this and the that, those storms pass. Things change. Nature's way is to restore and create and recreate, and we are interdependent within that system. And as beings of nature, it is our true nature to be resilient. And so we offer that resiliency to those who are held in our care. And so we ask ourselves, am I feeling depressed? I need to help someone. Am I feeling isolated? Help someone. Am I feeling troubled? Oh, help someone. Right? Each of these emotions become sort of self-consumed of like, am I feeling angry? Oh, I know how to transform this. I need to help somebody. Am I feeling lonely? Oh, I get it. I need to help somebody. Am I feeling insecure? Help someone. Am I feeling confused? Help someone. Am I feeling entitled? Help someone. Am I feeling worried? Help someone. Am I spinning? Help someone. Am I feeling demoralized? Help someone. Am I feeling misunderstood? Help someone. And so each time we help another, we open up that spaciousness within to find the same resiliency that the other person who is suffering is seeking to find as well. And that resiliency is always found together. And now you are my guides. What insights do you have? What thoughts have you been reflecting upon in this time?
Dr. Walker, one student did put a question in the chat, which can you see the chat or do you want me to read that? Okay, so there's that. Oh, and Alexa, I love both those questions.
So how would you advise us to deal with the moments that have made us feel small? For example, when toxic friends and bullies have made us something we know we're not, but we find it so hard to let go. What advice do you have for someone when they have more than one domino fall at the same time? So I want to offer it up to the group. How would you all respond to your friends' questions?
Well, I guess I would probably first recognize that if someone's doing that to you, they're probably not your true friend. So then, kind of going off of that, surround yourself by people who know like the real you, I guess.
Right, and sometimes having empathy for the other person, even the bully that you've had, and realize that they are most likely suffering inside themselves, sometimes makes the pain less bad.
I would say that, because you said that you know that what they said isn't true. So I would just kind of stay maybe knowledgeable in that. So you know that what they're saying isn't true. You have people there that support you. And so you could just, know who you are. And so those words maybe won't affect you as much.
Mm-hmm.
Who care about you, who will provide you support for your whole life, like your family, your best friends. They're the greatest support you can ever have if they really care about you, and they can easily help you overcome any sort of pain you have.
So wise. Listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be too long when you're going to be leading these types of discussions, when you're going to be putting together these slides. Your innate wisdom is inspiring. Your your intuitive sense of compassion is profound. To first acknowledge that when someone says harsh things and we're the target of that harshness, name that it hurts and it's wrong and it's painful. And we don't often get to reconcile our conflicts with people, to like work it out, to say, hey, what happened here? Why did you say that? That's not true, like this or that, right? So much of conflicts in life go unreconciled. And such is the work of the rich internal life, to do the internal reconciliation. Like your colleagues have just said, like to know your true worth, to reframe how you see the bully as maybe a victim of their own pain, their own suffering. To rely on friends and family to work it out. I think that's great. And as far as dominoes falling, they often do fall more at once, right? And that's okay. So what is it like to fall? What is it like to fail? What is it like to lay it all down? It sucks, but it's okay. You can let things rest. You can let things fall.
Dr. Rocket, you know what I'd be interested in hearing is, have you, any of you had an experience where you, on that last slide, you listed a whole bunch of different tough experiences that we could have, and that the solution to each of those was to help someone. Have you ever had that happen where you experienced that, where you were feeling something negative and that putting, because I think that seems counterintuitive. I don't think that, when we're upset, the first thing we think of is, well, this is so devastating to me, I'm going to go help somebody else. We think, oh, I'm going to sit here and nurse my wounds, right? I'm going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. But I really strongly believe that is a solution. And I've seen that happen a lot in my life. But I wonder if you've had that experience.
That's thoughtful.
I'd be interested in hearing about that if you have.
Yeah. I'll share an experience and I'll share a study on this topic as well. There's a study of these psychologists going to 100 people, and the first 50 people, they gave them a $20 bill and said, go spend this on yourself. And they're like, great. And so then they came back and said like how it was and whatever. And like, there was like, a lot of people felt like, oh no, I didn't feel like I really deserved that. Thank you. Like they kind of had all these kind of like shy feelings. The next 50 people, they said, here's $20, go do something for somebody else. They're like, okay. And they went and like did stuff for people, and they came back and they reported that they felt better, they felt empowered, they felt like they did it, it made a difference. And so it's good to practice self-care. Yes, always. Like that's so important. But to help another is a way to help oneself. We benefit from being empathetic and caring. That's our true nature. So for me, I've just been feeling extremely anxious about COVID. And so I just signed up for a vaccine trial, and I got that shot yesterday. And my husband Vikram got that as well. And we looked through the science vigorously. He's a cancer researcher, so we asked the principal investigator all types of questions. We went all through the literature. We were like, okay, what are the consequences? What could be the ultimate risk? What can be this? What can be that? And we kept thinking, all of these families are burdened with COVID in such extreme ways, like Zoom kindergarten. Like my nephew's in kindergarten, and they're like trying to do all this stuff with the families running around while doing work, while one person's unemployed, while this is so much pressure. we have a much simpler life. So how can we help? And so to offer ourselves to science in this way was something that I felt like we could do and we could help. And it of all the fears and all the unknowns and all the risks, we weighed those and we said, okay, we're ready. And we did it with eyes wide open, and it feels good. It feels good. Just like when I think of like when someone who goes into the military, like I think of Sherry's sacrifice to our country by being in the military, for instance. Like, what a profound thing for her country, you know, that she's on the front lines on that to help and to serve. That sense of service gives a sense of purpose, and that is helpful. And so I just want to give a shout out. Yeah, it was the happiest I ever was in my life. Absolutely. Absolutely. What do these topics bring up for any of you? Was this what you were expecting? Were there kind of things that you have brought to this topic that you wanted to explore or to offer to the group? You want to say more about that, Sherry? Like, how isn't it funny? Like, it can be being in the military is physically and mentally the hardest part, this hardest challenge, and yet you felt happier than ever. You loved it.
But I think that's another thing that sometimes is counterintuitive, in the same way that, you know, if you're suffering, to help someone else might not be your first, and that things that are hard we don't think of as maybe being the most meaningful thing. But I would say the same thing. I can look back on things that were really challenging but incredibly satisfying, you know, and yet I'm the first one to say I would look for ease. You know, what's the easy thing? Where can I be the most comfortable? I don't want to do hard things. So, but I tell my kids all the time, you can do hard things, and it's good to do hard things. You know, so, but you know, it's not. I think our natural inclination is to look for easy things, and to, and yet they're not, like you said, the most satisfying. Yeah, I think I like Laura's point. Growth happens in discomfort, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about purpose that really can be transformative and can really get us through difficult times. And often that purpose may not be self-evident, but it's something we might stumble upon, or and those are some very exciting times. Can I just pause to acknowledge like how attentive you all have been? Like, do you notice the stillness by which you're engaging? Like, there's not like, you're not moving around and fidgeting. You're like totally like in the flow of like, just like, okay, here we are. So whatever you're doing, I just want you to know that that's not gonna notice. Like, it's impressive for you to have that kind of focus and that empathetic type of listening. And in that way, I feel heard. I feel like I matter because you did that for me. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you sharing what you had. The reason I chose to attend this too is because I had a professor, I'm a psychology major, and I had a professor that said a big part of mental health is resiliency. And I was just so, that just kind of like captivated me, that word resiliency, especially right now. Also what you said before, when you look back on things in your life and you realize that you had gotten through that, that helps you get through your current situation. And oftentimes I think we are stronger than we think we are at the time. So thank you for sharing that.
My honor. And you'll be soon teaching a course on happiness and resiliency soon enough.
Yeah, eventually.
I think the free period ends at 1:45. So I think we're out of time. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to make before we sign off?
I was actually wondering, you had mentioned that he's teaching like an honors college class. I don't know, I just want more information on that. Like, I would love to enroll in that for whenever it needs to fit.
It's for the spring, and I'll send you, I think the course description will be on the website soon, but you're welcome to reach out to Dr. Walker too and hear more about it. But it is an outgrowth of, well, I'm speaking for you. I'll let you speak about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, what were you going to say? An outgrowth?
I was just saying, outgrowth of, it seems to me of what happened in the spring, and the resiliency training that you did there. That's my sense, is that it sort of was born there. I don't know if that's right, but you go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. The seed was sort of planted, but I realized, I think there's something, a full course here. And I edited the Oxford Handbook on Religion and American Education. And so they said, do you want either a check for like $400 for publishing this book? And I was like, wow, $400 for publishing a book. Or they gave me $800 in books credits. And I was like, I'm a nerd. Of course I'm going to do the more books. So I got paid to do that book with more books. And so one of the books that I bought was the Oxford Handbook on Happiness. And so what I just put in this group chat is that draft syllabus of that course, where I basically took that Oxford Handbook on the science of happiness and broke it down into bite-sized experiences. Plus I added in some of my own stuff. And and thanks to Dr. Westman, I'll be teaching it this spring in this honors seminar. And I can't wait. It'll be a great experiment.
I think so too, and I think I'm really thrilled about it. So let your advisor know now that you're interested. So thank you so much, Dr. Walker. We really appreciate. I texted Laura when you're speaking, and I said, his voice is so soothing. I feel like it's so listening to you, and I actually took a lot of notes. So I'll show you.
Great.
Whole pad of notes here. So, but it was just really a great interlude to sit and think about these things when we're in the midst of, like you said, really challenging times. So I hope it was a good experience for those of you that attended. If you have follow-up questions, I will tell you that Dr. Walker is very accessible, and you're welcome. You can email him, and then this is recorded, so students won't be able to watch it for Honors College credit event, but just because some students wanted to hear what he had to say and couldn't come today. So, Laura, did you want to add anything?
No, I just echo what Dr. Walker had said earlier. Thank you guys for being such a good audience. Very attentive, great questions, really thoughtful advice. I learn from all of you every day. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.